Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today I want to talk about the first volume of Legends of the Condor Heroes, A Hero Born by Jin Yong, aka Louis Cha. This is the first volume of a Chinese trilogy, although in English it actually has 4 volumes, not 3. But yeah, this is the first volume of a Chinese fantasy trilogy, and Chinese fantasy, with that I mean wuxia, so this is a martial arts trilogy. The trilogy was first published towards the end of the 1950s, and I read that in China the trilogy is super famous, very known and very widely read. And I think this is the first time that the whole series has been translated into English. The first volume was published in English in 2018. I also read that the trilogy has had quite the impact on the wuxia genre in terms of other novels, but also in terms of films. So I think that's also quite interesting. So what is this book about, you might ask? A Hero Born takes place around the year 1200, and China, under the rule of the Song Empire, has been invaded from the north from the Jin Empire, and about half of the land is now in the enemy's hands. And it starts with 2 patriots, Sky Fury Guo and Ironheart Young, who live in the south together with their pregnant wives, and the 2 men are furious about the situation, and they are very mad about that their land has been invaded for I think 12 years now, and about the corruption of the elite and about how the government does not protect its citizens. One evening, Sky Fury Guo and Ironheart Young meet a Taoist monk by the name of Xiu Chuji, who they invite into their home. They also have kind of a fight with him, but not to kill each other, more to test each other's kung fu strength, I think. Anyway, they talk with the monk, and it turns out eventually that he is being chased by people from the Jin Empire, so he has to leave. And then a while later, Sky Fury Guo and Ironheart Young are killed by people from the Jin Empire. Ironheart Young's wife, Charity, is kind of kidnapped by someone. That's all I'm gonna say here. And Sky Fury Guo's wife Lily is also kidnapped and brought further north, but she manages to flee eventually. She gets her child and raises her child in Mongolia, and eventually she and her son Guo Jing, they end up living with the army of the person who will later become Genghis Khan. So they live with the Mongolian army, which is quite cool to read about, if you ask me. The book follows mainly Guo Jing, the son of Sky Fury Guo, how he grows up and how he is guided by his 7 shifus, his 7 masters, who are known as the 7 heroes of the south. They want to teach him their martial arts skills because he's kind of destined, you could say, to do something which I don't want to tell you now because that would be a minor spoiler. He's destined to do something later in his life, which his shifus want to prepare him for, and he also wants to avenge the death of his father, so he wants to kill his father's murderer. So Guo Jing is in Mongolia, living with the army of Genghis Khan and learning from his 7 masters. And the thing about Guo Jing is that he sometimes needs an extra explanation about things because he's not the most cunning character you will meet, but he is very loyal and very brave. And he's very likable, I think, because he's not the most cunning character. He doesn't have bad intentions and nothing, but that means that he has to learn how other people might have bad intentions because he does not think bad of other people. So that's kind of the main character we have here. That's all I'm going to tell you about the plot of A Hero Born. I hope that it wasn't too chaotic, but yeah, I wanted to avoid spoilers as always, so that is more or less what the book is about. If you like wuxia films and martial arts films more in general, and you're thinking maybe I would like to experience this kind of fiction in a book form, I would absolutely recommend you to read this book. I had a lot of fun reading this. I did need a bit of time adjusting to the narrative style because it is quite different. I'm not sure how to describe it, but the narrative style is a bit different from what you might expect from a book labeled as fantasy from a Western author, and this is no surprise because this is Chinese. But it is a bit different, so I did need some pages to just, get into the flow of how this book is written. And also there is a lot happening in this book, and I don't mean that the story is super complicated. I mean that there is a lot of action in this book, so you don't have many breaks where not a lot is going on. But it's quite the contrary. People are fighting all the time, they are testing their kung fu skills, they are arguing before they are fighting and all that. And also you have a lot of names of techniques in here which the characters do, which I think add up to the picture of how all the characters are really fighting with kung fu. It also means that I'm not always sure what they're actually doing if I only get the name of the technique they're using. But this was not really a problem for me because I really enjoyed how different this book was and how it kind of tells you not everything that is happening, like what every movement looks like, but they're telling you the bigger picture of what they do. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. So the style is a bit different, but it's also really captivating, I think, or I got captivated by the story a lot because a lot is going on. And yeah, because I really like Guo Jing. He's a very likable protagonist, as I said, or I kind of really liked him. I also thought it was very cool that you have Genghis Khan in here and that you have this kind of historical connection there. And that you meet several characters who are historical figures. I think that is super exciting to read about. I think that this book is super cool. I absolutely enjoyed this first volume. The only thing that I'm kind of not too happy about, and that's not something of the plot, that is not something of the narrative, nothing. It's just that if you start reading this first book and if you are realizing that you are enjoying this book a lot, I would recommend you to get the second volume right away because the first volume ends mid-plot. It's kind of in the middle of the story. So if you don't want to wait a few days before reading on, then I would just recommend you to get the second volume. And as I said, this has nothing to do with the plot, the narrative, the characters or anything. This has only something to do with where they made the cut between volumes 1 and 2. So yeah, if you realize that you are captivated by the story, you might think about getting the second volume right away so that you don't have a pause mid-plot basically. So yeah, those are pretty much the thoughts that I wanted to share today about A Hero Born. If you're kind of interested in martial arts and in the wuxia genre more specifically, I think you should absolutely read this book. I hope that you enjoyed today's review and maybe I'll see you back for part 2.